right, welcome back to Rohrich Knose podcast, helping you become more grounded and helping you become a more educated you. So let's talk about grounding. This is not a new concept. It's certainly something that I think bears talking about, especially the science and the benefits. And I would encourage everybody, if you're really going to talk about it, this is a great book called Earthling. It's by Ober and Sinatra and Zucker. It really talks a lot about, grounding and really this concept, which I think has some merit. Now, is it an end-all, do-all? I think that it really is something that is worth talking about and makes a lot of sense. And, and what is grounding? It really, involves you connecting to the Earth's surface to absorb electrons. And, basically, mankind has always walked barefoot on grass and soil and for forever. But I think only in the last several hundred years have we actually not been barefoot. We are now no longer walking on grass and soil, but we're using it, with insulated soles and shoes, and that may not necessarily help us be grounded. So let's talk a little bit about that. So it's really, grounding is also known as earthing. It's the practice of connecting your body to the Earth's electrical charges. The science behind it is based upon the idea that, the whole Earth is a negative charge and that we are positive charges. So by connecting the Earth, some scientists will believe that the body can discharge this excess energy and experience healing effects. So you're basically taking your positive charges and neutralizing them with the negative charges from the Earth. And that's really the science behind grounding, because the Earth is very rich in negatively charged electrons. And so what that does, if you discharge those, you suck out the positive ones, you can get reduction in oxidative stress and inflammation. And really, it's an anti-inflammatory response. And so you can get improved circulation, and it actually has been shown to regulate cortisol for better sleep and stress reduction, stabilizes your whole body. And there's actually some good science behind this. There's multiple articles. This happens to be a good one in the Biomedical Journal on grounding, the universal anti-inflammatory remedy. And it really is a great, great review article on this. And it's written by Stephen Sinatra, who actually wrote this book that I actually just showed you. He was one of the co-authors of this book. And it's really got some powerful things in it that it really, there's been multiple studies that show that grounding has been documented to have some profound beneficial effects on normalizing the influence on cortisol, have a calming effect on the brain, and perhaps normalizing your muscle tension. And it all gives you a more improved response to trauma and tissue. And this is a very well-quoted and often quoted graph that talks about how when people were more grounded, 50, 60 years ago, when they were wearing true leather shoes, and that was like 90% of the market, that there was less chronic diseases, specifically diabetes. Now, obviously, this is not necessarily a linear correlation, but certainly with the advent of now 95% of the market is synthetic shoes, not leather shoes, that is correlated also with the evolution of more and more chronic diseases. Now, of course, it's not algorithmic, and certainly there's been other things that have been going on since then, but it certainly is one of the factors that I think can be considered a benefit of grounding, because it reduces inflammation, enhances moods, improves your sleep quality. And I think it's accessible to anybody. Anybody can go out and you can go and walk on the sand, and I love doing that. I love earthing, especially when I really miss living on or near a beach. It does have a calming effect, and there's been some studies to show that it reduces inflammation, as you can see in this illustration, where you see really the reduction in inflammation from the red. And I think that's very, very powerful. So it has a lot of positive effects. that I talked about, and I think that, you know, one of the biggest things is that it really increases your energy, and it improves your ability to sleep and reduces pain and discomfort. Now, you know, the concerns about it are that, you know, there's not a lot of mega science. There's some really limited good studies on it, but I think that the key is, you know, is it a placebo effect, or is it something else? And I think that's something that is still up for debate. But, you know, I've been using grounding now for about a month. And because, you know, the reason I started doing it is because whenever I go to a beach, I'm spending a lot of time really grounding on the beach, I come home feeling more refreshed and better. Now, is it because I'm on a beach and I'm barefoot? I don't know. But, you know, I've used, you know, a grounding device, you know, like this is a mat that you can get off of Amazon, and you can just basically make sure that it's grounded, and you can see that it's quite simple to use. You can use it while you're actually working on your computer. You can use it for, you know, 30 minutes a night, and you can also make sure it comes calibrated so that you can truly make sure it's a grounding type of device. So I think has it been, you know, noticeably beneficial? I would have to say I would hold my judgment, and I'll do a follow-up one in 6 months to show that this direct contact has neutralized my free radicals, you know, has offset my positive electrons in my body. But I think it does have a calming effect. And certainly I think, one thing I've noticed that, I mean, I don't have trouble sleeping, but I certainly have slept, I usually, you know, only needs 4 hours of sleep, and this has allowed me to sleep almost seamlessly for 5 or 6 hours, which is unusual for me. So I've noticed that in the last month. So how do you make it work for you? Well, you spend 20 or 30 minutes barefoot outdoors, which many of us can't do. I live in Dallas, Texas. Or you can use grounding mats like this. And then you can choose, you know, a safe space. And I actually use it when I'm working on my computer at night. And certainly you're doing 20, 30 minutes on that. And then, you know, you place your feet firmly on the ground. You can, you know, record it, take slow, deep breaths, and then observe, you know, what's in your present environment, which is really being mindful. And I think that's important. And then there's all kinds of rules, like there's a 3-3-3 rule that says you observe 3 things that you can see, 3 things that you can hear, and then 3 things that you can touch. That's a grounding technique to kind of help you cope while you're grounded. I don't really need to do all that. I think I can do that when I'm working on, you know, a project or on my computer. So I think that's very important to do. I think the key is to be, when you're grounding, just see what the beneficial effects are long term. But what I mean is, you know, how do you feel, you know, better? How do you sleep? Is all those things really changing you? And I think that should be what grounding should do. And of course, it makes sense. It's easy to do. And honestly, it's kind of getting back to our roots as, you know, as Homo sapiens. You know, we weren't born with shoes on our feet. We were born barefoot. In fact, I was recently running in the Dallas Turkey Trot, and I ran by a guy that was running barefoot. And it kind of got me back to saying, wow, that's pretty amazing. I think, honestly, that can be a little dangerous, especially when you're running on concrete. I don't know how much grounding you can get with that, but I think the more you can get outside, the more you can ground, I think the better it is for you, because it also helps you, put you in a good mindset. So I'm going to follow up in 6 months and tell you how my grounding journey is. And please give me your comments and give me your thoughts on what you think has worked for you. And if grounding is done, well, let me know what effects it's had on you. So until next time, stay grounded and stay informed. Have a great one.